Hello.
Hello,
Welcome back to another episode of Our Years. This is Barry.
I'm Rima.
In today's episode, Rima and I were talking about the other day, like actually we've been talking about this quite a while, is career development. We thought it would be a good episode to talk about since we're kind of going through it. And I think a lot of our viewers are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be like a good topic to chat about because you can kind of learn a lot from your friends from chatting about things like this, right?
Yeah. It's nice. I think that's one of the reasons also we started this podcast is because we
Mhm.
realized people who've had our experiences or have had similar journeys were having the same issues, like either in their personal life or their careers
Yeah.
or their professional life at work. And so it helped like learning from other people's experiences to also know what you want to do for yourself and what you don't want to do for yourself, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the things that Ali was on previously on our podcast.
Yeah.
Shout out Ali.
Yeah.
She said something in one of her reels the other day that I saw, and she said that she's very transparent with sharing like information about like her salary or like what she's doing in her career. And she thinks the reason she does it is because you can really learn a lot from your friends, and by sharing or being transparent about it, you kind of learn and gain knowledge from your friends and exchange that knowledge for the better, right? And I was just like, wow, that's so true. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it because you don't want to hurt other people's feelings if you earn a little bit more or a little bit less, but it's really not. You're just kind of supporting each other by sharing that information.
Yeah, I don't think it is as commonplace. I don't know if it's a gender thing. I don't know if it's a woman thing or like, or men are talking about it, but definitely in my circles, I feel like women don't talk about their salaries.
Yeah.
And there's still some sort of like taboo, like it's not a polite thing to talk about. And I really hope that that's changing. I don't see it happening though. And
I mean, I think it's a lot to do with maybe some people potentially feeling like they're being left behind. So let's say like we share our salaries with each other,
yeah.
or like with a group of people, right? Some people, I think we earn like maybe similar salaries, so it doesn't matter for us. But like, let's say we're in a group of people and everybody's from different careers, right? And then you share your salary, and then someone maybe of a lower income is in the group. Maybe they might feel bad, or they might feel like they're less than.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think women are a lot more sensitive.
Yeah.
And that's probably why.
Yeah. And this is why women also get left behind.
That's also true. That's
Yeah.
also true. But yeah, with that being said, in this episode, we thought we'd focus on our career development, what we're doing, what we have been doing, and what we will do going forward. Just to kind of like talk through and share ideas. And obviously, if you guys have any new thoughts or ideas, please share in the comments. That will help us as also and this community. Okay. So maybe to give a little bit of context first on where we are in our careers. So I am in big tech. I have been in big tech for 3.5 years. No, almost 4.
4 in June.
Yes, 4 in June because we're same work
Work
anniversary. Yeah, so 4 years in June for the both of us. I'm
Yeah.
in big tech and Rima is.
Yeah, I'm a senior program manager for a fintech startup.
Yeah, and I'm a program manager for big tech. We're both you're in data science.
I'm in data science, yeah. I'm in the data science space. Now I'm in the AI space.
Gotta do AI.
Gotta do AI.
And I am in manufacturing engineering. So, engineering in general. But yeah, I think more the techie side of things.
Yeah. So dissimilar in the way that Barry is more focused on hardware.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and I'm more on the data science front. But yeah, we're both program managers. This is both our first jobs in America for context. And like we mentioned, we've been in our positions for 4 years now.
Yeah.
In June.
And Rima has more experience under her belt. So maybe you want to talk through.
Yeah, I have more data science and consulting experience, but this is back in India. And so one thing I had to also unlearn is like how conversations about promotions and career development happen in India versus here. And so that we can talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. And for me, I wouldn't say I'm a blank slate, but it's more so I was like in Taiwan also doing I would say manufacturing, semiconductor manufacturing. So also in tech, but I was there for a year being an engineer. So yeah, I think like differences, I guess, in the way we approach, and that's what we wanted to share today.
Yeah, I keep forgetting you have 2 masters.
No, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful.
You wouldn't be where you are without it.
Yes, exactly. So jumping into it, what does career development look like to you?
I think it means a few things for me. One, it means having competency in what I'm doing in my skill sets and improving those skill sets and sort of leveling up. Not necessarily doing more work, but doing smarter work because of new skills and improved skills. The other thing I think career development is having a seat at the table. So it's not like someone's just giving you a task list on what to do, but it's having a seat at the table and deciding what makes sense for that particular program that you're in. I work in the program space. So what makes sense for the program and having a voice.
So like influence.
Having influence and impact. So not just like it's being given to me and I just have to follow orders. And I don't want to be an order taker. I want to almost design what it is, whatever work I'm doing. So have a seat on the table. And the third thing I think is mentorship. So I think your ability to grow a team, whether you're a lead or whether you're a manager, I think your ability to grow a team and mentor folks and influence them to understand what the vision is and help them through it. I think that's also progression. So I think it's three things. And fourth is being comped for all the work that you're doing.
Of course. Yeah. But I think with comp is like just you growing in the position. Like no one's not going to comp you for the multiple years that you are at the company.
Right. Yeah. So you need to like drive value, right? Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
I think career, the similar things, I would say like growth just within your role. And that could mean acquiring new skill sets. Your influence, I think, is a big one. That's what you mentioned. I think being able to influence cross-functionally and have a say, or in order to drive a decision or help drive a decision-making process, having the ability to bring value to help make a decision or more effective in making a decision. I think in program management, we don't necessarily make decisions, but we facilitate and drive and guide the decision-making process. And I think the more senior you become, the more influence and impact you have. And then also, I think just growing in my role in terms of promotions. But now that we are in this role and now that we kind of chat more with other people, I think career development are maybe a little bit more than that. So maybe debunking a lot of like ideas.
Yeah, or myths or like learn or things we thought were true about promotions.
Exactly. I think like most people have this misconception that in order to grow in your role, you have to become a people manager.
Yeah.
Guilty, right? And I think a lot of people think success is measured by how your career looks in terms of being a people manager.
Yeah, I definitely believe that.
Right.
In fact, in one of my first jobs, when I had a colleague who didn't want to be a people manager, I sort of thought that was the wrong move, and I thought they were sort of messing up their career. But I don't think that's true. Yeah, I thought they were being complacent, but I don't think that's true. I think being a subject matter expert is very valuable.
For sure.
Or equally, if not more.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things Rima and I discussed and have learned, especially in the States, when, for me at least, in big tech, right? Like there's only a certain number of people manager positions that are open each year. So it's just, if you think about it logically, it just doesn't make sense that everybody becomes or gets to become a people manager, right? And so what does that look like for people who are not on the managerial path in terms of growth? That's when I learned that, there are very senior engineers at our company who are like called distinguished or principal engineers who have been in the company for over 10 years and are, like you said, an expert in that subject. And those are a very feasible path for growth within a company, because what you bring and what value you bring in that role is that you gain more skills, you gain more information and knowledge about that particular subject, and that is also growth, which is what defines career development. Yeah. So what I learned is that promotions, also skill sets, and then also just finding different paths within your same role. It doesn't have to be managerial. Another path that I learned about career development is potentially looking for jobs outside of your particular field, right? Because
In the same org or different org?
it doesn't matter. Like
Okay.
opportunities outside of your current position, that is also career growth, right? Just because you pivot into another field or another position, another company or within the company, it's also a form of growth, honestly, because you're learning new skill sets, right? So I think like one of the other ideas of career growth is pivoting. And now it's funny that I have been in this company. Rima and I have been talking about this a lot because we're reaching 4 years, and that's when you start thinking about what you want to do in your career growth. Not that we haven't really spoken about it with our managers, or like within our companies where we want to head, but I think it's more so exploring different opportunities for growth.
Yeah. I think one of my senior managers at my company told me that being a manager, regardless of people or technical, being a manager doesn't mean you're doing more work. It just means you have different skill sets that you're exercising. Right? And I think that's gave me pause to think about what sort of skill sets do I need if I'm growing my scope. Like say I'm doing... There's a couple of things in program management, right? You can either be doing multiple small programs or you could be doing a large multi-year program. So then if I was going to be a manager or like level up in my managerial position, it did give me pause to think about what does scope improvement mean in that regard. I'm still thinking about it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on what that means.
Okay, so I think like in different companies that means different things. Like because of the nature of my role, which is a engineering program manager, naturally I can be holding multiple projects or overseeing multiple projects.
Yeah.
I think the people manager in our role is, by definition, they will oversee multiple projects, but they manage the program managers who are managing the multiple projects.
Yeah.
So naturally they are overseeing those projects as well, but they aren't in the everyday nitty gritty, working level discussions. They're more so there for guidance on strategic directions for the projects. I think the people manager side of things, at least for my role, is more so helping the EPMs or directs under you to achieve their goals faster or to achieve more success in driving their projects.
One of my manager told me that I'm going to have a problem if I become a people manager.
Okay.
When it comes to ceding responsibility or delegating.
Okay.
She told me that I'd want to be so involved in every decision and know what's happening all the time. Not even like in a micromanaging way, but just like be aware of everything or feel like accountable for something. And so she's like, that's not going to work.
Yeah, there's no way because your scope is going to be so big.
You just don't have that much time.
Exactly.
So yeah, I thought that was funny that she gave me that feedback, which is very accurate.
I think it's very accurate. So I think maybe a part of growing into that role is for you to learn how to like only focus on the key decisions instead of being...
And almost letting go.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things I'm learning as well.
To let go?
Yeah, otherwise, and to delegate, honestly, because similar that we are, that like I want to be involved, not because we want to micromanage, but because we're passionate about the project and you want to know what's happening. And so you want to be involved in those discussions.
A lot less passion for me, more anxiety. Like things fail. But
but one of the things going back to us debunking what it means to be successful in your role, I think one of the things that I've kind of learned about myself is, as I'm in this role and as I'm observing people managers, I think I've started to take a step back and really reevaluate if that's what I want. Initially, that's what I wanted because that is what we thought success was, right? But now that I'm in this role and I see the kind of complexities that come with being a people manager, which includes politics, I think I'm not someone who wants to play certain games in order to get myself a certain position. Sometimes that is the kind of hard truth about being in big tech or in companies.
In regular jobs.
Right.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend recently about how I was like, I feel like I'm suddenly getting a lot of, or visibility to a lot of politics at work, and it wasn't the case before.
That's true.
And I feel like in the last year or so, I've suddenly been
involved in
a lot. Even if I'm not an active participant, I'm like in the rooms where this is happening. And so I was like, I'm like, what's happening? Is that dysfunction? Is it company dysfunction, team dysfunction? What is happening, right? Is it a state of the world? Because I saw this study which said that people become meaner or more selfish in recessions, because you're only sort of like you're under so much stress because of mounting costs, because of geopolitical issues. And so you generally, people become meaner. And I was like, is it that? Because the state of the world is, in disarray.
Yeah.
And so I was like, is that also what's happening? And we're all in tech where there's a lot of conversations happening about AI, AI taking jobs and layoffs potentially. So there's just so much happening that part of it is like, were people always like this and I never saw it because I was naive, or are people just reacting to their environment, a macro environment? But my friend was like, it's very simple. As you rise up the ladder, you're going to see more politics.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think when we were just entering the company, the reason we didn't see all that, I think, is because we were just shielded from all of that, because we're just simply not experienced enough to be in those conversations.
And we didn't have a seat in the table, so to speak.
Exactly.
Right? But now that we've grown in our career, we're getting involved in those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And that being said, like, now that we're in those conversations, how do you think that is a sign that you're on the way to get promoted, or that you're on the way, or have you asked for a seat at a table?
Yeah, I think I definitely have advocated for it. I think the other day I said something to my manager along the lines of, we were talking about some program, and I said something like, I'm ready for a certain thing, not a promotion, but I'm ready for a certain scope increase. And then she was like, we know. I was like, okay, I brought this up enough.
Yeah.
Which is quite a change for me, because I feel like previously, and we've had this conversation, it's difficult to advocate for yourself, and sometimes I'm almost like, I'll just let my work speak for me. I'm like above all the like optics or managing up.
How much do you think that is because of our culture?
Yeah, I think it's a lot because of our culture.
Yeah,
growing up in India and Asia, South Africa.
Right.
I think a lot of it is like, I think in Asian culture, it's wrong to ask for things.
Yes. I think we're brought up with that mindset that if you do well, if you work hard enough, your work will show.
Yeah, the world is a meritocracy.
Right.
Which is a big fat lie.
Exactly. And that's one of the hard truths that I think we both learned. I think Rima learned it earlier than I did.
I think because I've been in the workforce a little more. But I also had that.
I remember how shocked that you looked. I was like to Rima, it's so surprising to me that I was told by a colleague that if I want to get promoted, I should ask for a promotion and ask for what I should be doing to get there. And I was so shocked. I was telling Rima how shocked I was by this, because in my mind, I am a hard worker, and naturally in my life, when I have been a hard worker, I was
rewarded accordingly.
Exactly. And so now that I'm in this new space, new country, new culture, I was learning this I was like a baby. Yeah. I was just like, I didn't know that I had to actively talk to my manager about my career path and what I want for myself in terms of promotions.
Yeah. And I remember telling you that you're shocked by what your colleague said. Right. And I remember telling you my exact words were, I'm shocked that you're shocked.
Exactly.
But I've been in the same position. I think it just came, like, I have a few more years of experience, and I think that it just came with that. But also my jobs previously, my first job, for instance, I was on a fixed career path. Like, it was like every year I knew what my scope change was going to be and what my salary increase was going to be. So, or what my variable bonus was going to be, right? So that is also why I didn't develop that muscle for some time. And I started doing it more when I started jumping jobs to negotiate like my comp then. But within the company, I've also it's been a learning curve.
Right.
But yeah, I think the difference is now I think we've both learned that you have to ask for it and sort of be blatant about it.
Right.
Yeah.
With that being said, what steps have you taken in this path that you've given yourself to progress in getting a promotion?
So one thing I've realized, and this is also feedback that I've received, is if you're asking for a promotion, you almost need to make the case that you can do the job that you're being promoted to. And so you almost have to operate at that level and show people that you're already operating at that level and show proof. Like, take out your rubric. I'm sure if you are at even like a 10 member plus startup, you'll have a career rubric on what the next jump should look like. So it's literally making the case for yourself where you're able to say, hey, or to your manager, you're able to say, hey, this senior position requires these things, and this is how this is what I'm already doing, and almost make the case. And I think in larger firms, there's almost like a promotional panel, where this will happen in one of my other companies, where you have a panel discussion. So there's people across different functions of the org, and you have to you and your manager make up a case for why you should be promoted, and you have to show the rubric. So the forum for where you have to prove this may be different, but essentially you need to almost start keeping receipts. You need to start showing what you're doing and how it levels up to what your peers are doing, or it's almost at a level higher than what your peers are doing, and why you're operating at the position that you're gunning for.
It's interesting that you say, like, you know, you got to keep receipts. Like, one of the things that is quite interesting is, you know, at the end or whenever your performance review is, you kind of have to write a review for yourself on what you did in the past year.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I think in our culture, at least, I just felt shy talking about the things that I achieved, and I didn't think that was worth putting into my performance review. It was up until like my manager was like, oh, remember that thing that you did? And in my mind, I was like, oh, that is so small, but I didn't know that was something I could write in order to show that I have the skills to perform a certain task.
Yeah.
And so now that you talk about like these receipts and stuff, I'm like, yes, now it makes sense. Now that I am more experienced and I now know what I need to do in order to get to a promotion stage, is you realizing and taking credibility for the work that you've done.
Right. One thing is taking credibility, which is also like something that we're learning. But the other thing is you don't know what's going to happen in your org, right? Like I have a friend who works in big tech, and she was up for promotion, but her manager went on maternity leave, and she was not there during her promotion cycle. And her skip just didn't have visibility into what she was doing. And she didn't have receipts. Like she didn't have any proof, even though she did the work. And so she didn't get promoted because she just couldn't prove it.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you have to constantly watch your back and constantly like be alert, which is exhausting.
Right.
But it's just one of the things that you have to do if you're in corporate.
Yeah.
You have to expect the worst.
Right.
And be happy when the best happens.
Okay, I wouldn't call it that. What happened to the positivity, Reba?
Yeah, I was looking at last episode where Barry's like, oh, you're so positive. And I'm like,
back to square one?
We'll get there.
But yeah, I think it's the way like you perceive it, right? Like not necessarily receipts, but more so just being proud and recognizing the things that you have achieved. And so instead of me during my performance review writing all these things and kind of like tooting my own horn on like all these things that I've achieved, instead I would write, oh, okay, this is like a milestone for me because, you know, I set this as a goal and I was able to achieve it in a certain time frame. Just being like factual about what you have received is how I have started to perceive it. Otherwise I feel kind of guilty that I'm not being humble about the work that I've done. So it's also a learning process.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is visibility into your work, right? Like with my friend that didn't get promoted, she did the work, but it was really unfortunate that she wasn't able to prove it. Yeah. So yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. So then one of the things you said is like keeping receipts and, you know, recognizing and being visible to leadership that you are capable of doing the work of someone at a higher level, right? I think another thing that I have done is like actively talking to your manager about these things, and not only like keeping these receipts, but actively talking about the things that you have been doing, so that when it comes around and you write it in your performance review, it doesn't come as a shock and they don't remember what has happened.
I agree, because I think when you do your performance review at the end of the year, you also have anchor bias, right? You just remember what was happening in the last quarter or the last few months. So the whole year you sort of don't remember what you did. So I think that's also for yourself to keep like a record of what was or how you've grown, right,
Yeah.
for yourself. I think that's important. And I remember this thing of like asking my manager for a promotion when in this current company. After a year or two, I was like, I'm ready for the next level. And so I was like, okay, time to ask.
Yeah.
And when I asked, she said I wasn't ready for
Interesting.
a particular the promotion that I was gunning for.
Okay.
And so then I was like disheartened. But then I asked for a performance
Exactly. Yeah,
development plan,
right.
and she was very open to it. So I knew that
Mhm.
it wasn't an excuse that my manager
Right.
was giving me for denying me the promotion, right? She was very cooperative. She was very collaborative. And she was very motivating
Mhm.
in putting my plan together and showing me what skill set I'd learned from this particular line item in that plan and how it'll show that I'm ready for the next position. So and once she showed it to me, I was like, okay, fair.
Yeah. Right.
I was
But you
not
didn't
ready.
know like what level or what you should be working towards, right? Up until you created that development plan.
The thing is, the rubric is pretty vague. Sometimes it's like a lot of it is open to interpretation, or at least the rubric
Mhm.
that I have. So I can prove that I can do something based on a line in the rubric,
I see.
but then someone else can say, no, that's actually not
Yeah.
what you should be doing. So I think having measurable impact really helps.
I think though one of the things I've learned is that our role, particularly a program management role, which is very much soft skill based, is quite subjective.
Yeah.
I think like even though we do have a rubric, it's at the end of the day subjective to
Very.
who is perceiving the situation, right?
Yeah.
And so even though there was a rubric that I'm kind of like comparing myself to so that I can know when I'm ready for promotion, I'm just like, how much is really whether your manager or your management chain advocates for you. Right?
Yes.
So at the end of the day, yes, talk to your manager about your career growth, your career path, come up with a development plan, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, talk to your manager about what they particularly are expecting, given how subjective it is.
Yeah. The other thing is like there's so much trust you need to have with your manager that they have your back.
And that they are advocating for
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
And you have
For
that's
sure.
sort of a blind spot, right? You don't know what rooms they're in and what conversations they're
Exactly.
happening.
Yeah. Rima and I were talking about this, and I think, there's only so much you can do, which is what we're talking through, like comparing yourself against the rubrics, considering like what skills you need up level in order to get to what's on the rubric.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, you need to have a very supportive and supportive management chain who will advocate for you, and you can only trust that they are advocating for you, right? So then maybe on the contrary, if you find out that your management isn't advocating for you, what do you think you would do?
I think in my current position, I can't move to another team because I work for a startup. I'm hired for a particular skill set like data science, program management. So there's no other data science team that I could move to, right? So then it would be that I would have to look for another role.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think like a path is moving out and finding another role, and I think another path is talking to other managers and asking them.
Yeah. I think if you work for a big enough company where your function or the role that you can do at another team for another team,
Right.
based on different scope,
Right.
but same skill sets, I think, you should definitely
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. And I think not even only when you're like not making progress with your manager, but I think in general, it's just a good idea to talk to other managers. It's funny. Someone actually said to me that what they've learned in their particular role is their mentor said to them, why are you setting up one-on-ones with people that are not higher level than you? You should be setting up one-on-ones with people who are higher level than you, because those are the people you learn from and gain value from. And so don't worry about like the other one-on-ones. Like you should be hyper focused on the one-on-ones that will bring you value and benefit. And I think that that's so true. Like the more you network within your team, within your org, and get to know other managers, and the more visibility you have in front of other managers, is what's ultimately going to have a group of people of a certain influence and impact to advocate for you.
Yeah. That's really good advice.
Okay, so so far we've kind of spoken about what we have been doing in terms of career development. So summarizing here, a good one is having a development plan. Definitely always be vocal and proactive in talking to your manager about what you want for yourself in that particular role, whether it is to grow or get promoted into a managerial role or get promoted into a more senior expert role.
Yeah. I think in the book, Radical Candor, Kim Scott talks about two kinds of people, and I think we've discussed this too before, about how there are rock stars and superstars. And so you need to even tell your manager about what sort of growth, even if you want to stay in your current IC position, what the increased scope looks like, or even if you're in that position, like what is hardening in that role look like, right? And so Kim Scott calls the people who don't want to rise up the ladder in a traditional people management sense, she calls them rock stars, because they're like rocks and they're very stable and you can depend on them. And it's nice to be able to voice that that's what you want and be accepted for it. And I think there are companies where you can get that. I think a lot of people feel that they can only be people managers if they rise up the ladder. I mean, if they want to rise up the ladder, they have to be people managers. And Kim Scott calls the people who want to rise up the ladder in the more traditional people management sense, she calls them superstars, because the trajectory is super. But I think that's one of the things when we talk about what you want to discuss with your manager in terms of growth, you have to identify which part you want for yourself.
Right, and be vocal about it.
Yeah, because even if your manager thinks that you would be a good people manager and push you towards that path, if you're unhappy in that position,
if that's not what you want,
ultimately you're going to be miserable.
Right. So at the end of the day, I would say like be proactive in raising what you want for yourself and being vocal. I think one of the first steps, though, is to advocate for yourself and believe that you are worth, being promoted because you're doing all the right work, you're doing all the right things, and just getting guidance on how you can grow into the role that you want to be in.
Yeah. Don't operate with fear.
Yeah. And also don't operate on like me being baby Barry in the sense that, someone's going to promote you based on your hard work. It doesn't really work like that in the real world. You got to advocate for yourself, be vocal about what you want, and ask for guidance and advice on how you can grow into that role.
Yeah. In a healthy organization, everyone's working hard.
Right.
So if there's only one promotion available and there's like X number of people working hard, you need to make the case for yourself.
Exactly. Okay, so then that is what we have been doing. So moving into what we are currently doing, I think currently still, chatting with my managers about every, time I have a one-on-one, I will ask, hey, is there anything that I can be doing better? Or is there anything that I should be doing better? Is there any feedback that you've received from other cross-functional teams about what I can be doing better?
Yeah. So I do this too, where I ask for feedback, but I feel like off late, I've not been getting feedback.
Same. And so this is where I think it's so important for you to go and chat, or me to go and chat with other managers, because they see things from a different perspective. Yes, your manager can think you're being great at your job, right?
Yeah.
But if other managers are seeing it from different perspective, they can give you a different guidance or a different idea of like how you can up level yourself.
Yeah. Do you have a more formal feedback with other cross-functional teams, or do you just set up one-on-ones yourself?
I just set up one-on-ones.
Okay.
Or like I try to build a relationship with other senior managers so that, I have like it's not through my personal management chain. It's just me going to create that relationship that I can ask for personalized and customized guidance. And I think that has worked and has been helpful, especially when, I'm working with their team, and if they get feedback from their team, it also helps me, because if that manager and I have a relationship and their team tells them good or bad things about me, they can understand at a more personal level if that is true or not.
Yeah. I like that, because then they have like an actual opinion about you.
Exactly.
And they're not going to be swayed by what they're hearing.
Exactly. And on the upside is that they will give you feedback that is actually valuable to helping you collaborate better with their team.
Yeah. I think the other thing that is mentioned in this book, Radical Candor, is that you can't give people feedback objectively if you don't have a relationship with them. And I think that's very true, because you can't have a transactional relationship with people and it's not sustainable.
For sure.
So that was also an interesting point.
Yeah, for sure. All right, then I guess like going forward, because we're both kind of in a lull of like waiting
Yeah.
to get promoted.
Yeah.
It's not like we're just waiting around. Obviously, we're doing all that we can.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you just, as we mentioned, need a management chain that advocates for you, but also sometimes it is other constraints and factors that come into play, and sometimes it's out of your control.
Yeah.
Just sorry, you're gonna say?
I think we spoke about this in a previous episode where I feel like, at least for me, in a lot of areas, I'm just waiting. Not just like in work, like, we, like work permit, like just like so many different aspects. I feel like I'm just waiting and it's really frustrating. And I think I need to find a way to make the passive waiting more active waiting, right?
For sure.
Like, okay, if I'm not going to get promoted, that's the reality, then what are my true steps that I can take? Like, am I ready to leave this company? Am I ready to start interviewing? If not, if I'm going to be here, what can I do with my time?
Right.
Are there skills that I can gain? Because like, what can I learn with knowing that I'm not going to get promoted? That'll just help my career, right? Yeah, spend time on that.
For sure. And I think that so much of this is also our personal mindset, right? If you want to grow, then that's what you'll do. You'll find ways around what your current situation is, given the constraints.
Yeah. I feel like this is something that I need to work on, where like I said, I've been very passively waiting and I need to be more active.
And this is why we talk. You kind of encourage and motivate each other and inspire each other. Because I think it's the same where, sometimes you feel a little down and you feel a little helpless because it's out of your control, but a lot of it can be in your control. So I think going forward is just continue to proactively find ways. Like plan A is to get promoted in your role, but if plan A doesn't work out, what are you going to do for plan B? And that's basically what you were saying.
Yeah. And at some point, it's like acceptance. If there are times when I've left my previous jobs where I've just known that it's sort of a dead end. Right. And it's very much like a thing that happens.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so before we go, I think our key thing is being proactive. So I saw this quote that I wanted to share, and I thought it was a good inspiration. And it goes, between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom, by Viktor E. Frankl. And I thought that was like such a good quote, because at the end of the day, it's the power lies in you, and you have the ability to decide how you move forward. Yes, a lot of the times, you can't control the outcome.
Yeah.
But there are so many other paths, not just that particular path that you thought was going to be for you.
Yeah.
So that is what I wanted to share. Anything from you, Rima?
Yeah. I mean, no.
So with that, share your thoughts. We would love hearing what you all are doing in your career development. I think our point is, to create a community and to share our thoughts and learn from each other. So if you have any thoughts, share them in the comments or write to us, actually.
Yeah.
We would so love to have emails from our listeners. With that being said, we're going to wrap up here for today. Hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya.
Doodles.